Problem number 11, I notice that I am not in standard form once again. 3x squared is good, but I need to follow that up with minus 2x and minus 5, and then identify my greatest common factor. My greatest common factor, let's see, 3 and negative 5 and negative 2, those have nothing in common except for a 1. Remembering that dividing anything by 1 just leaves that thing left, I don't really need to do a greatest common factor in this case. I can move on to identifying A, B, and C and setting up my X puzzle. So setting up my X puzzle, I have A times C, which is going to be negative 15, and I have a B value of negative 2. So I am looking for factors of negative 15 that add up to be negative 2. Let's see what our signs need to be. Looking at my chart, I have a negative 15 for my top number, so I'm going to be over here in the orange. I also have a negative for my bottom number, so that means that my bigger factor this time needs to be a negative and my small little factor needs to be a positive. Remembering that I need to write my small factors on the left and my large factors on the right, I have a small positive and a large negative. So I'm going to start with a 1 and 15, that my 15 needs to be the negative. Then 2 won't divide evenly, but 3 will, 3 and negative 5. 4 won't divide evenly, but 5 will, but I already have 5 and negative, or a negative 5 and 3, so I'm actually good. All right, so in order to get a negative 2, I'm going to need the factors of 3 and negative 5. That's going to add to be negative 2. So I can say 3 and negative 5, and I'm now ready to set up my box. So my box is going to have 3x squared, a negative 5, and then my two factors I just determined, 3x and a negative 5x. The greatest common factor between 3x squared and negative 5x is going to be an x. And between 3x and negative 5, well, that's just going to be a 1. They don't have anything else besides a 1 in common. 3x squared and 3x have a 3x in common. And finally, a negative 5x and a negative 5 have a negative 5 in common. Remembering that I'm pulling the negative out because of the negative in the box right next to it. And so I can write my final factored form as x plus 1 and 3x minus 5. All right, based on the examples that we've done, I am confident that you are ready to tackle number 12 and 13 on your own, so please pause the video and give it a try. Once you're done, come back and see how it worked out. All right, number 12 doesn't need to be rearranged, so we're ready to identify a greatest common factor, but our greatest common factor is just 1 again, because we have a 1 as our A term, nothing else could possibly be in common. Identifying A and C, I'm going to get my top number value to be negative 18, bottom to be 3. Factors of negative 18 that add to be a positive 3, I'm going to need my small negative followed by my large positive. So setting up my t-chart, I'm going to find out that negative 3 and 6 are my factors, and then I can set up my box with a negative 3 and a 6, x squared, and 18 from my original equation. Pulling out the greatest common factors and remembering that the negative sign goes with the box right next to it, I get a final factored form of x plus 6 and x minus 3. Looking at number 13, I need to rearrange this one to 4x squared plus 17x minus 15 so that I can properly identify my A, B, and C values. My GCF is just a 1, so I don't even need to write it. And so 4 times negative 15 gives me negative 60. I'm looking for factors of negative 60 that add to be 17. Once I determine all of my factors of negative 60, remembering that the smaller one needs to be the negative and the bigger one positive in order to possibly have two numbers multiply to be negative but add to be positive, I can figure out that a negative 3 and a 20 are my factors. Setting up my puzzle, and again remembering that negative signs follow negative signs, in the box right next to it, I get my final factored form of 4x minus 3 and x plus 5.